because with apple cider vinegar, what it does, it regulates glycemic variability. And when you drink, let's say, a shot of apple cider vinegar, or you mix it with some food, the response of your glycemic variability post that food will go a bit lower. So a lot of traditions use apple cider vinegar, but that is primarily to lower the blood insulin response post-meal. And probiotics. So probiotics is, we have a lot of probiotics in our food. When you ask me, probiotics are amazing if you want to develop a certain species of bacteria, but they're not essential. I wouldn't recommend everyone to go with a probiotic supplement, because in recent studies, they've figured out that probiotics don't really do much as prebiotics do. Because for probiotics to work, you need to have the prebiotic fiber in your body. So if you do want to supplement with a probiotic, I would say you can, but just have a prebiotic source. Or you can have sauerkraut or kimchi or any of these fermented foods first, so that the probiotic acts on it. Otherwise, those bacteria cannot really act, because it is a part of an organism. So you have to have one part of the equation first to complete the other.
Can you give us some black food in the Indian scenario?
Yeah.
Besides berries, because
Bland food?
black.
Like black, you said dark foods, no?
Dark.
Oh, yeah, so
it's vigan and all.
Blueberries in Indian scenario, not possible for everyone.
What about asparagus, spinach, any kind of leafy, dark green leaves? Anything, methi, yes. Bangan, yes, it does have a lot. It's not the most optimum, but you can have it as well. Or tea. Tea is a great way to increase the level of polyphenols in your body. So you can have that. Any black tea would do. Black tea, green tea. You can have coffee, any forms of coffee, but like from the beans, not from the powder. And that would increase your polyphenols as well. And then again, polyphenols, remember, they increase the bacteroidetes in your body, which is the bacteria that makes you thin. Also, we've learned one more thing, which I think you might find useful. If you be around a person who's thin, the bacterial profile of the thin person can actually transfer to you. So next time you have a choice of having friends, try to.
My friend is here.
But what is, because the microbiome are even in your skin.
Yeah.
So the gut microbiome also develop in your skin. It transfers from your skin to your body, and then what we've seen in experiments is that if you put a fat, like I shouldn't say fat, but a person who's overweight, and if their bacterial profiles are very difficult to transfer, but the ones which are thinner, it's very easy to transfer them. So all you have to do is to have some patience and go hug a friend who's very thin. Sorry? It is debatable. It's very, yeah. It doesn't, the chances of them transferring is very less, because they're not the ones which can jump onto another one and harvest their colonies, whereas the ones which are thinner do that. Yes.
What do you say about it's a good combination? What do you say about
Sorry?
both of us?
So what about oil versus ghee?
Perfect. What oil are we talking about?
Also vegetable oils,
So-
refined oil versus filtered.
Vegetable oils are a destruction for your cell membranes. So I wouldn't suggest vegetable oils. But ghee, butter.
What about till oil?
Sorry?
Till, mustard, sesame.
The thing is, when we compare these oils, we have to see what are we comparing them against. So a till oil may be better against corn oil, but it doesn't stand a chance against olive oil because of the polyphenols that the olive oil has and the nutrient profile that it has.
Olive oil, you don't get it in India. It's all imported.
Um,
They're not made in India. And that comes after 1 year.
Okay, so you have coconut oil and you have ghee and you have butter. These are some of the most healthiest forms of fat that you can take. Ghee doesn't have the milk protein in it. So milk is made out of a lot of proteins. Yeah, so the ghee by itself, butter has a very 5% of it, but ghee doesn't have any of them because when it's boiled, all of the milk proteins are destroyed. So if you have a digestive or an autoimmune condition to milk, you can safely go with ghee.
So you would say it's better to cook your food in ghee than in vegetable oil?
Yes, definitely. Sorry?
What about the calorie content?
It's the same. It's the same as any oils, yeah. All the oils are same. If you take it per 100 grams, it's all the same.
So, just checking, is it okay to have a spoon of coconut oil?
Yes, it is. I have it
in the
every morning.
It's good. And a spoon of ghee as well.
You can have a spoon of ghee. It's very nutritious. It helps you. So what happens is when you have some kind of fat in the morning, especially like coconut oil, it has anyone heard of something in the lines of ketones? Yeah, perfect. So what does coconut oil do? If you haven't been eating for 8 to 10 hours, and then you have a spoon of coconut oil, it is going to raise the ketones in your blood the same way. So let's say 1 spoon of coconut oil can raise the same amount of ketones in your blood, which you'll get after not eating for 8 hours. Then let's take it a step further because we're entering biohacking. There's something called as MCT, which is medium chain triglycerides. These are pure derivative of coconut oil, and they're split into 4: caprylic acid, caproic acid, and lauric acid. Now, if you want to have a higher state of performance, you can go and have a mix of MCT oils. What MCT oils will do is boost your ketone productions 2 times the amount of what a normal coconut oil would do. Let's take it a step more further. If you get a pure and the most pure form of something called as C8 of the MCT, which is the caprylic acid, it can boost your ketone productions up to 4 times. So, sorry? MCT is called medium chain triglycerides. It's a pure derivative of coconut oil, so you will have to source it from somewhere.
What you take is virgin coconut oil or just...
Yeah, extra virgin coconut oil, cold press.
The cold press one.
Sorry? It depends on how I want to plan my day. Apple cider vinegar goes every day, but the coconut oil depends on what are my energy demands for the day, which I'll be talking about a lot in biohacking.
Okay.
So,
Last question before we go to biohacking.
I just we all want to know what is the best way of having the coconut oil in the morning? How does one have it with water, with coffee, and is it the first thing in the morning?
It depends on your personal goals. So if you do not like having coffee, then coffee is out of the equation. If you feel comfortable having it just as a spoon, that's good enough. But I will be talking about some biohack with coffee and coconut oil and butter and ghee. So if you want, you can wait for that one. Yeah.
Excuse me, should it be on an empty stomach?
Sorry.
She's going on.
I'll be going towards that. But before that, have you heard of this phase called sitting is the new smoking?
Yes. The papers all around.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Do you know how that works? If you've been sitting, there are over 10,000 studies right now which say that if you've been sitting for more than 30 minutes, chances are you have a 50% higher chances of dying than your counterparts. And I think you've been sitting for a long time. So can we all just stand up for 2 minutes? Perfect. 30 minutes. That will go down. Yeah. How do you guys feel? Just shake some legs, get the blood flowing. A good thing to do. Okay, let me take, since everyone is standing, let me teach you another trick of digesting your food and absorbing more nutrients. So we know about the mind and gut connection, right? Here's a trick that I do. If you consciously get in touch with your gut after every food that you have eaten and thanking it for everything that it's been doing and thanking all your other organs for whatever they've been doing, your brain can actually transcribe those messages and your organs respond in a certain way. So here's a trick that I do every time I'm standing and I finish a meal. I take a deep breath. Everyone, deep breath. And while you exhale, while you're coming down, and while you're coming down, take 2 or 3 seconds to consciously get in touch with every organ in your body which is responsible. I thank my eyes, I thank my lungs, I thank my kidneys. And by the time I'm here, I've been sending positive messages to my gut that everything around me is okay and they don't have to worry. Because the thing is, if you're stressed or if you're remembering so many things at the same point, your gut microbiome gets stressed. And when they get stressed, they don't absorb all the nutrients properly. So a good exercise to do is to thank everything and let your ecosystem know that everything around you is okay and the world is a good place so they can thrive. Because if they're scared and they know that the world is not a good place, they wouldn't thrive. Okay? So let's have a seat.
You can thank your wife, then you
Sorry?
can thank your wife.
Every day you should.
She digested. Thank your wife.
Okay.
Where is the mic? We exchange this swap it. This seems to be a better mic.
It is. So it's all the steps that you can take in your environment. So everything inside you, outside you, and around you that would affect your biology and a state of being. And why is this so important? Because you, me, and everyone out here is facing a battle, which is an uphill battle against neurotoxins, diseases, bad quality of air, pollution, Wi-Fi, and radiation, along many more. While we fight this battle, our ancestors hadn't have to do this. So a lot of ancestral wisdom that we have got is not really applicable in today's modern society because the modern society doesn't operate that way. To fight this uphill battle against airline travels, gamma radiation, microwaves, and EMFs, we have to take certain steps in order to protect ourselves. And now, from the way I see it, there can be 2 types of steps. One is you can go into an isolated environment in a farmland where you don't have enough mobile connections, you don't have much pollution, or you don't have any kind of things that will hamper your performance or the way you show up in the world. Now, the other way to do it is live a life, but be more aware about what is happening, and pop in to your house from time to time, have some antioxidants, have some anti-aging pills, do a certain kind of movements which will counteract everything that the environment has on us. So that is biohacking. And today I'd like to share with you my top tips and tricks, things that I've learned after traveling all around the world, meeting a lot of new people, and discussing ways on how to improve certain biological systems. It consists of all of these. So let's move on. Before moving on to anything, we'll be using a certain term in this presentation a lot, which is called the mitochondria. Has anyone heard of the mitochondria before? Few people have. So when we spoke about the gut microbiome, I mentioned that there were 100 trillion organisms in our ecosystem, right? Now there is another series of organisms or organelles. These are ancient bacteria which are in our cells, and they're called the mitochondria. Their job is very simple. They use the light that we're exposed to, the air that we breathe, and the food that we eat to make energy. These are a quadrillion. So if you thought 100 trillion was a lot, these are a quadrillion. And they produce over 90% of the energy that we use. So the energy that our brain uses, the energy that our body uses, the energy that we use to move around is produced by your mitochondria. And another term is ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. ATP is basically the currency of your energy. So when we say we're making energy, we're not really making energy, we're making ATP. That's the molecular term of energy. We'll be hearing this term a lot, so I just want to have you familiarized with what mitochondria is. So, first thing, how much sunlight does everyone get in this room, approximately? Less? Plenty, perfect. That's nice. Everyone gets plenty? Okay, perfect. Now let's see, why do we need sunlight? So sunlight can do a lot of things in your body. Now the first thing is that it dilates blood vessels. So it encourages a lot of blood flow in various organs and tissues. This happens because of the production of nitric oxide. When your body is exposed to sunlight, near, far, ultraviolet, all of these rays enter your cells and they promote the growth and distribution of nitric oxide, which is good for you. Nitric oxide also lowers down blood pressure. So, and I think it was you who asked me about the stress, right?
Yeah.
So if you go into sunlight, you produce certain hormones as well, called as beta endorphins. And beta endorphins can reduce your stress levels. So if you're stressed, just go for a walk in the sunshine and you will feel better.
But what is the right sunlight in what time?
The best time would be in the morning and right when the sun sets, because that exposes you to the right amount of UVA and UVB, as well as near and far infrared lights. So at the time that the sun is setting, when the sky is almost orange, or first thing in the morning, after the sunrise, 2 hours after the sunrise. But nowadays, the beautiful thing with technology is you can download apps on your phone, which will precisely see your geographical location and which will tell you what is the best time to go out for your age and for your body type. So vitamin D reminder is one of the apps. It's on the iPhone and it's on Google Play Store as well. And you can see wherever in the world you are, which is the right time to get a specific form of sunlight. Now, what vitamin D? So the minimum that you should go out is at least for 30 to 40 minutes in a day, but that can be split over different times of the day. Because sunlight does a lot of, instead of just dilating your blood vessels and lowering your blood pressure, when you expose yourself to a lot of sunlight, there is a lot of circadian rhythm regulation that happens, which I will be talking about shortly. So it's not the amount of time, but it's the quality of time that you get. So if you're getting enough sun exposure through various times of the day, you will have enough of those vitamins and vitamins that will be processed in your body.
So sunblock is a no-no, right?
Sunblock is a no-no. So it also reduces depression and anxiety because it reduces salivary cortisol, which is a measure of your stress hormones. And when depression and anxiety go less, your beta endorphin goes high and you feel much better. And depression and anxiety is one of the most common factors that we see in today's day and age. They say 1 out of every 10 people has some form of depression, and one of the major reasons for suicide is depression. So this is something that has to be taken very seriously in today's modern world. We are getting more connected with everyone, but still the social isolation rates have been rising dramatically. And sunshine can battle all of that. So now the next thing is to limit your eating window. I know you've know about intermittent fasting already. Well, has anyone heard of time restricted feeding? It's a type of intermittent fasting, but what happens is you lower the time that you need to eat food between 6 to 8 hours in the day. So your eating window will only consist of 6 to 8 hours. This is a new phenomenon which is made famous by a top circadian biologist from the ULC Institute called Sachin Panda. And what he's done with a lot of mice and human trials is that he's restricted mice to eat only for 6 to 8 hours a day. And then he's taken a second group of mice with the same mother and identical genes, and they've been left to eat all day. The group of mice which have eaten only for 6 to 8 hours, over a period of 9 to 13 weeks, have been shown to reduce body fat by 28%, increase muscle mass, and even increase endurance. And what he argues is your eating window should be sometime in the day. So a lot of intermittent fasting encourages do not have breakfast and get on to your lunch and then have dinner. But what Sachin argues is the way our circadian biology works, which is our sleeping and wake up cycles, it all depends on eating food in the morning. So if let's say you're eating from 9 p.m., then you start your window at 9 p.m., calculate about 8 hours, and then stop eating in the night. 9 a.m., which is recommended to start your eating window. And then you stop either 6 or 8 hours, or you can even go 9 hours. The lesser, the better. But we don't see any more increases in triglyceride levels or cholesterol levels beyond 6 hours. So 6 hours is like the minimum effective dose. Now, intermittent fasting works on a different principle. With intermittent fasting, what happens is you can fast for 12, 16, 18, or 24 hours in a day. Or you can have alternative day fasting. Now, what intermittent fasting does is it lowers down your blood pressure, lowers down cholesterol. It even accelerates something known as autophagy, which is the recycling of your cells. What happens is when you do not eat for a certain amount of time, the cells in your body, they start getting hungry. And because of no influx of calories inside, they have something called as scavenger cells. Any cell that you have which is not performing to its best or is weak and old, these cells go out hunting for those old cells and eat them. As a result, what happens is your body is forced to make new cells. But when your body makes new cells, it's more stronger and more healthier because it's just like a new baby being born, and which stays with you forever. So intermittent fasting, one of the main reasons why it works is boosting autophagy. And if we keep feeding ourselves 24 hours around the clock and we don't take enough time to fast, autophagy doesn't increase. And as you get older, you want more autophagy to recycle all the dead cells and tissues that you have in your body and to rebuild new ones. And let's say when we spoke about the mitochondria, which is the power plants of your cells, every cell in your body, which is about 50 trillion, have about 1,000 mitochondria in them. So when you recycle those cells, you even recycle the mitochondria, which is known as mitochondrial autophagy or mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the generating of new mitochondria. When you have these new mitochondria, the energy levels in your body spike up. And this is one of the top tricks for anti-aging. You want to recycle all your degraded proteins, tissues, and cells. The second thing, or the third thing, or the mechanism of why limiting your eating window is better is because of ketones. Some people said that you know about ketones and what they do. For those of you who don't, let me give you a brief introduction. So the energy system that we have in our body depends on carbohydrates or eating any form of carbs, because carbs get broken down into glucose, Then they move through a process called as glycolysis. They turn into pyruvate. They enter a Krebs cycle, and they go into different forms just to get a certain kind of energy. But what happens is when you do not give your body carbs, your body still needs to produce some sort of energy. What it does is your liver produces these water-soluble molecules, which are called as ketone bodies. They're divided into three: beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. This specific compound called beta-hydroxybutyrate powers it's an anti-suppressant, so you don't feel much hungry when you're fasting a lot because your level of ketones in your body have been elevated. And they're a better way to fuel your brain. How better? 28% much better. So if you're having, let's say, a banana, or if you don't have anything, the ketone bodies that will raise in your bloodstream will power your brain 28% more. What about the heart? The myocardial cells in the heart get increased by 25%. Now, think about that for a second. Can you imagine your heart performing at 25% more capacity than it's used to, or your brain firing neurons at 25% more capacity than it used to? For me, 5% is already a big thing. If I can just get my brain active 5 more percent, there is so much that I can achieve in the day. And with Alzheimer's and dementia, one of the key problems that happens is the brain gets deprived of energy. The neurons don't fire as fast. This is the reason for age-related Alzheimer's and dementia. But with ketones, if you can provide your body enough number of ketones, it serves as an alternative fuel which powers your brain even faster. So you can delay Alzheimer's or dementia for a longer time just with ketones. So that is one of the biohacks. Try not eating all the time. Try to fast sometimes, because these are the mechanisms and the pathways that work for fasting.
So you're trying to say you need a 6 to 8 hours gap between each meal?
No, I'm trying to say you have to eat within 6 to 8 hours. And then just don't. Because remember your gut microbiome as well, the good ones, they don't require a lot of food to grow. So they thrive on an environment where you have depleted yourself of calories or you don't have any more energy coming in. That's their time to grow. But if you keep on eating, then your insulin level fluctuates, your glycemic variability fluctuates, and they don't do their jobs properly. So moving on. Let's talk about electromagnetic frequencies. So the World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified any electromagnetic frequency as a possible carcinogen and is also associated with brain cancer. So the times that you use your phones and you keep it right on your ears, that will or can cause some issues with brain cancer. There's no better way to put it. So why does this, or how does this mechanism work? There are two forms of radiation which comes from Wi-Fi and cellular towers, and we classify them under the broad spectrum of EMF. One is a non-ionizing radiation, which is low levels of these radiation which come from cell phone towers, from phones, from Wi-Fi. And then the second one is ionizing radiation, which comes from large devices like airlines and big communication devices. Now, how this works is magnetic fields around you, they affect a lot of organs inside your body. They affect your brain, they affect your heart, they affect your mitochondria, and they don't let them function properly. When we think about calcium, right? And calcium is essential for building bones. But biochemically, calcium is another very important mechanism. It's a mediator of intracellular signaling. So what happens is, when you have electromagnetic frequencies and calcium around the cells, calcium is abundant around the cells, by the way. For bones, it's a different story, but for the cells, it's got enough. There are thousands of calcium ions around the neurons and the cells. When you're affected by any of this radiation, there is something called as voltage-gated calcium channel signaling. Well, basically, in simple terms, what it is there's these holes that open up which allow calcium to surpass into the cell membrane. And when calcium passes that, your neurons start to fire up really fast. So fast that they reach excitotoxicity, which means dying of neurons. when they don't get regenerated. So in a way, these electromagnetic frequencies are letting calcium ions, which is not just a little bit, it is 1 million calcium ions per second per voltage gated calcium channels. They open up, go inside, the neurons fire, and then they die. And slowly, over time, a lot of neurons and your cells start dying. And they even, what happens, that the neurons are dying all the time, but there is a process in the body called as apoptosis, which is recycling of all these neurons and dead cells in the body. Magnetic fields stop apoptosis. So that's why it's something that we should be careful about. And let's say autism, right? We've been hearing a lot about autism recently, and in the past 10 years it's come up a lot. So they've identified about 1,000 genes which are directly related to voltage-gated calcium channel signaling. What that means, if you're pregnant and you have a laptop next to you, or you're continuously having your phone around you, there are possibilities that these 1,000 genes might affect you and your child can have autism spectrum disorder. Now, so what's the government doing about this, right? So the government has set a safe standard that, okay, Apple and Lenovo and other companies in technology, you're set to emit radiation up to a certain amount. But the government standards are very off, because the intercellular signaling is 7 million times more sensitive to any of these frequencies than the government standards. So basically, they're off by 7 million times. That's why it's so important to consider your the electromagnetic frequencies. So some of the things that can happen when your body is near magnetic fields are cancer, insomnia, anxiety, depression, brain fog, aging, autism, slow and fast heartbeats, sudden cardiac arrest. And these things haven't been in the literature or haven't been mainstream yet, but these are extreme things that impact our biology. So what do we do about them? Let's look into some biohacks. Whenever you're carrying your phone in your body, it emits a lot of radiation. What you can do to save yourself, and the fact is we'll never be able to be out of a Wi-Fi environment. We will not be able to never have our phones. But what you can do is put your phone on airplane mode. When you put your phone on airplane mode, every time it's on your body, it stops all the electromagnetic frequencies. Now, for men, there's even a bigger problem, which is infertility. Infertility has been increasing a lot in the past 10 years. And one of the reasons why that happens is because of being exposed to magnetic fields. If you put your phone in your pocket, there is statistics now that your sperm motility will decrease by 8%, and your sperm viability will decrease by 10%. For women, you're not too safe either. If you keep your phone around you, you have more chances of getting breast cancer than the counterparts. So one of the biohacks is just keep your phone on airplane mode and just use it whenever you have to. The second thing is Wi-Fi. If you have Wi-Fi is one of those non-ionizing radiation. So if you have Wi-Fi in your house, it's difficult not to keep it on all the time, but at least the time that you're sleeping and your brain is going into this drive of neurological repair, you don't want these voltage-gated calcium channels to open up in your brain. So as a trick, just switch the Wi-Fi off when you're sleeping. This can go a long way. Latest trend, always listening to headphones, the AirPods, all of these things. Well, when you put it into basic terms, these devices are communicating with each other. They're sending some kind of a wireless signal. And when you have it too close to your ears, which is right next to your brain, it can affect your brain. So I would always suggest use a wired headphones over anything which is Bluetooth, or else you can use something as an EMF-free air tube headset. You get these air tube headsets now, which are wired, but which don't have any wires inside. It's like the sound transmits as air, and they're very clear. I use them all the time, and it's much better to not keep your phone around your ear. it's much better not to talk on the phone at all. But if you have to, just use the air tube headsets. Keep electronic devices away from your body. Microwaves also emit a lot of radiation, so if you're cooking your food, try to heat it. Do not microwave it, because that will destroy the genetic profile of the food itself. Remember, almonds have 28,000 genes. So step away from large devices. If you think you're next to a cell phone tower, or if you're next to something which is emitting a large amount of magnetic frequency, just step away from it. Don't be close to it. If you're on an aircraft, don't sit next to the window. Sit next to the aisle. Try to touch a metal frame, because that can transfer some ions and can battle EMF. What else can you do? You can increase the amount of magnesium in your body, because magnesium is a calcium channel blocker. So what it does basically is it blocks those holes from opening. Other things you can do is to increase certain pathways of your body called as NRF2. NRF2 can be increased with fasting and with exercise, but not a lot of exercise, just some exercise.
What does take the magnesium? What food is good?
With magnesium, I would say it's better off supplementing magnesium, because in order to get the, you should, it's because you have to have an enormous amount of vegetables, which is not, again, good for your digestive tract. So it's much better to supplement with this, because what happens with food is the soil that we have right now, believe it or not, is degraded. It's not the same that we had about 30 or 40 years ago. The pesticides that we're using are enormous. And to be honest, like, just as someone referred, getting that organic vegetables is difficult. So in a way, in a modern post-industrial era, what you can do is to go and try better living by science. And we all know that calcium, magnesium, all these things are good for us. And our ancestors have been telling this for a long time. But now we can use better living by science or biohacking to supplement ourselves with even the most pristine forms of, for example, magnesium. So I would say if you're supplementing, like, you should supplement with the magnesium.
So what is it that you supplement in your
Just magnesium by itself.
You don't get it.
Sorry?
How do you get it? Because my husband has a problem. No. My husband has a serious problem with low magnesium, and we don't get magnesium here except for milk of magnesium.
Does anyone know where to get magnesium
Now
tablets?
we are getting it from Europe, but it's not available here.
Maybe I think someone. Maybe you can connect after this, and you can know.
We talk about Tesla plates.
Sorry?
Tesla plates, which come to my
Tesla planes? Tesla plates, yeah. So,
about that, but I don't know much about
well,
it.
there are
Supposed to help.
there are technologies that can help you which can help you block a lot of EMF. Now, different companies use different minerals, and they have like synthetic materials which can block these calcium channel signaling. So maybe Tesla is one of those companies which does produce it. But yeah, you have a lot of. It will help. Yes, it does help. But then again, to source the best company is, you have to do a lot of research into it. But as a general rule of thumb, when you don't want to go out of your way to get something, these things are basic and it helps a lot.
Excuse me.
Yes.
What's a good natural source of magnesium?
I would say cacao.
What's that?
Cacao, chocolate. But cacao, as in the bean itself, it's very high in.
Processed chocolate would help?
No, just the bean. So if you can get like raw cacao, that is excellent in terms of, it's one of the highest amounts of magnesium out there. And most of these dark leafy vegetables that you have, most of them have magnesium. So much better to.
Any other fruits or vegetables that you could?
Fruits, I'm not a big advocate of fruits, but I don't think fruits have that kind of magnesium.
You're saying natural coconut. How is it then? How do you get it?
So it's just like coffee. So how you get coffee beans and then you grind them and you get the powder. So cacao is the same way.
Can we wind up by about 8 o'clock? Is that okay? We have about 15 minutes.
Okay, so we will have to just go through this really fast now.
Maybe we can do 8:15. Is that okay? I don't audience.
Would you like to sit here for another 20 minutes? Okay. Okay, so let's go over this a bit faster. And if you, yeah, let's keep the questions for later. I'm more happy to sit with you individually and discuss about a lot of things.
The flow is also getting broken.
Okay, so melatonin is a master antioxidant in your body. It's also known as the sleep hormone. It produces a hormone which allows you to sleep better. Now, one of the things which is a biohack which you can understand to increase your melatonin levels is, can everyone see this image? Yeah. So what happens is when you go outside in the sun and you expose yourself to natural rays of sunlight, it enters your retina. What it does is it enters this cells called as melanopsin cells, which is located in your retinal ganglion cells. It travels all the way to your brain, and there is a cluster of neurons which are approximately 20,000. Those are called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And these neurons decide on when you produce melatonin, when you sleep, when you wake up, when is your liver functioning the optimum, when is your heart slowing down. All of these things are being decided by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is also known as a master clock in your body. So if you're having any sleep issues, going out in the day more and using unfiltered light, which is not wearing your sunglasses, letting the light shine into your eyes naturally for a few minutes, can help you get into better and deeper sleep at night. So this is a quick biohack. It also increases the level of melatonin, and this is a very powerful antioxidant system as well. So again, go out in the day. It can even affect the way you sleep at night. But the trick is you have to go without a sunblock and you have to go without sunglasses, because you have to let all the natural rays of light penetrate into your eyes and your skin, and every way it can reach your brain. Another biohack of this is now technology is doing a lot of things, and there's something called as a human charger. And what this does is it's a pair of headphones, and they shoot out near infrared light in your ear canals. So this is mostly associated with sleep workers or shift workers. And if you're feeling really tired or during the day and you want to correct your sleep cycles, all you can do is use those headphones and shine those light which goes into your ear canals and then travels straight up to your brain. And then you get more energy, you can be more active, and you can, if you're suffering jet lag, that could be a good strategy. It's called the Human Charger, and you can check it out. It's produced by a company in Finland. So circadian rhythms is when different times of the day where if you understand circadian rhythms properly, you understand how your biology functions at different times of the day. So there is a specific time of the day that your liver functions optimally. And if you're having any medicines that require liver functioning, it's the best if you could use those medicines at that point. Or if you're using any drugs for diabetes or any other form, there's a certain time when your body is more responsive to all these drugs. So I would encourage you to look into circadian rhythms. We'll skip this for later. Next thing is blue light blocking glasses. So what happens is when you look at sunlight, right? Sunlight has different spectrums, but the most powerful spectrum in sunlight is blue light. And all of these lights that we see around here are also in the same spectrum of blue light. It doesn't mean that the color is blue, but the spectrum or the strength of the light, it goes under a blue wave. But when you expose yourself to these lights like we are doing at this point, it sends a message into your brain that it is daylight outside because it's the same spectrum. And then you start having a lot of sleep problems because now your circadian rhythm shifts back and your brain basically thinks, it is daylight outside, I shouldn't produce melatonin. Melatonin also affects the way, how much weight you gain or how much weight you lose. So a lot of people who have sleeping problems also have weight problems is because of melatonin not being produced. One of the hacks that you can do is, I've got mine here. It looks, so after sunset, if you see me around, I'll always be wearing these blue light blocking glasses. what it does is it blocks frequencies of blue, green, and violet lights, which are the lights which come from sun directly. And once you block all these lights, your brain doesn't get that message that it is daylight outside and we have to be active and we don't have to like go into our rest and digest mode. So when you wear this, you create a lot of melatonin, you can sleep faster, you can sleep for a much longer time. So it's a good hack if you want to be around a lit environment like this. You can look into investing. You can. There are many companies in the world who do it. Now, grounding. Well, grounding has a lot of benefits because all of us are made out of atoms. And on a molecular level, we have either a negative, positive, or a neutral charge. The Earth's magnetosphere is abundant in negative electrons. And when you connect to these negative electrons, your body increases pathways which fight free radicals and any oxidative stress that you have. So if you're been wearing shoes all day, chances are you will develop a very positive charge in your body. And what grows up in positive charge are all the diseases. Diseases need a positive environment to thrive on. But when you can go outside and connect to bare ground with your feet, you absorb all of these electrons which fight inflammation, they fight pain, they lower your blood pressure. Also, if you're injured around a certain area, there's something called as mobile electrons. What mobile electrons do is they go directly to the injury. It's the Earth way of healing ourselves. They go directly to the injury and they create they create a cytoprotective environment and they heal up your injuries faster. So if you're injured, it's much better to go outside, get some sun at the same time, and expose yourself to negative electrons. And I know most of us do not have the time to actually go into the grass or soil and have that. But what we can do as an alternative and a biohack is to get a grounding mat. I have a grounding bedsheet and a grounding mat which allows me to absorb these electrons on demand. So whenever I'm in my office, I would just have the grounding mat under the floor and I would put my legs on it. And these give me enough electrons or negatively charged electrons to heal myself, to fight inflammation, and to be in a state of just thriving.
You can just stand barefoot on the ground.
Yes, you can. But if you're in the office and you cannot find it, or if you're sleeping and you still want to if you want to biohack it, that's the mechanism of how it works. But now you can go one step further and get mobile electrons directly through a grounding mat.
Is the grounding mat connected to the power?
Yes, it's connected to the power and it releases negative electrons from the Earth. So we're back to this sitting is the new smoking. So there are about 24, you can stand up if you guys want. There are about 24 chronic diseases related with sitting. And some of them are obesity, type 2 diabetes, neck pain, cholesterol, inflammation, and early death. Well, they did a study and they took two groups of people, identically the same. And one group of people were asked to see TV for 2 hours a day. And the second group was asked to see TV 4 hours a day, just a 2-hour difference. And while they were watching TV, they were sitting down. What they found was that the group who was sitting and watching TV for 4 hours a day had a 50% more chance of dying from all-cause mortality. That means they could die in a car accident because they weren't paying much attention. They can die because of heart attack. They can die because of diabetes. And the same group was even on a 125% more chance of dying from cardiac arrest or cardiovascular disease. So the question is, what are the mechanisms on why sitting for extended period of time works? What happens is when you're sitting down for more than 30 minutes, your metabolism slows down up to 90%. The bad fat around your heart has to be shuttled to your muscles to be used or to be burned. That stops. The muscles in your lower body, it completely shuts off. And only after 2 hours of sitting down, your LDL, which is your good cholesterol, it drops from more than 20%. So this is some of the mechanisms on how this works. Now, and then they ask the question that, okay, maybe this is because they're sitting for an extra 2 hours. Let's make them exercise the same. So both of the groups exercised the same, and they found out that the group which still did sit for 4 hours a day had a 34% more chance of dying out of a heart failure. So that's why I think sitting is... So how do we biohack this? Well, if you're in an office or you are in an environment where you like to sit down all day, what you can do is to have a standing desk. That's how I keep on standing throughout the day. And I have a desk as well, but every time I get tired of standing up, I go sit down on the desk, and it's not the opposite way. So you can do that as a part of your strategy. Normally, I have a 30-minute alarm on my phone. So after it reaches 30 minutes, I just get up, stretch a little bit, and sit down again. All it takes is like a minute or two of just moving around. And go grab yourself a glass of water. They also did a study where they asked people who were walking for 10,000 steps a day to lower down on their steps, about 1,350 to be precise. And they found out that the way every factor in their body, with triglycerides, cholesterol, or anything that would lead them to type 2 diabetes, like visceral fat, increased like 2-folds. So I think there's a very important message here. Nature didn't want us to sit down all day. In nature, we're always moving. But in the modern environment, we've been forced to sit down and watch something which is either binge watching or anything like this. And I wouldn't say that you should go off from all those things, but now when you know these statistics, you can at least take that time to stand up for a minute, then sit down and continue. Also, if you're sitting down and you're looking at a TV screen on a monitor which is a bit lower than your eye level, you will develop something called as postural kyphosis. And you will increase your level of back pain, neck pain, and the weight on your knees. Now, standing up doesn't seem like a lot, but it's very powerful, because if you stand 3 hours a day, right? Let's say, for example, you stand 3 hours a day, you're burning 50 calories more per hour. Now, if you do that 5 times a week, which is not even 7, just 5 times a week, you stand for 3 hours a day, you're building up to 750 calories per week. When you take the bigger picture, in a year, you're burning about 30,000 calories, and that is equivalent to running like 10 marathons. So just standing for 5 minutes can do the trick. Time in nature. Now, nature has a lot of medicinal and healing properties. Time in nature in Japan is classified as Shirin-yoku, which is a medical treatment advised to people who are suffering with chronic inflammation, or they don't have enough energy levels, or they're depressed or anxiety prone. There are specific areas of Shirin-yoku in Japan. And there is a growing community of medical practitioners called as ZARR, Z-A-R-R, which basically prescribe you to go to a green space and touch the soil at least 3 times a day. So this is really powerful, because there's something so powerful in nature that 60% of all the medicines that we have, or mostly all the medicines that we have 60% of tree elements in them. Limoledine is a compound which is used in anti-cancer medicines and chemotherapy. Trees also emit alpha-pipine, beta-pipine, and these very, phytoncides. There's these smells which calm your body, relax your nervous system, and make you feel peaceful. So every time you're stressed, or every time you think something in your body is not going correct, you can go visit a forest or just an open environment or a park. That does wonders. So let's look at a study, right? A study done on, this was a group of studies of 140 groups of people. And 140 studies, 290 million people was a sample size, and that sure enough is a big sample size. What they found out that exposure to nature can reduce all of these. And soil also has healing power. So if you just put your feet bare on the soil, there is something called, that's why people who are gardening are so happy. So soil has something, it's got different kind of bacteria as well, which promotes serotonin release. And the name of these specific strands of bacteria is Mycobacterium vaccae. And these are abundant in soil, and every time you go into soil and you just touch it a little bit, that's why I say do not clean your hands all the time. Let that bacteria absorb into your body, because that will make you more happier. Now, we've come to coffee, which everyone is interested in, I hope. Coffee can increase your energy levels. It burns, well, there are certain forms of coffee that you can do. But coffee generally is said to increase your energy levels. It also burns fat. So if you're overweight, it can help you reduce, it burns 10% more calories. But if you're like lean and you're fit, it can reduce or burn fat up to 29%. Type 2 diabetes, people who drink coffee regularly are 23 to 50%, they have 22 to 50% lower chances of getting type 2 diabetes because of the natural polyphenols and sirtuin activating compounds in the coffee. Now,
Instant coffee. Is it without
is coffee beans, yes.
Yeah, coffee beans.
Also without milk.
So what happens is the gut bacteria, they survive on polyphenols. Coffee is full of polyphenols. But if you add milk to coffee, that polyphenol absorption reduces from 5 to 10%. And any polyphenol that you get is very important for your gut bacteria. So I would never advise to have milk.
It's good to have Americano.
Yes, it's good to have Americano. But I will give you some more strategies on how you can biohack coffee itself.
How many cups a day recommended?
Let me talk about, I'll give you an answer shortly.
But the caffeine in coffee can affect the sleep also, mostly.
Yes, so let me come to that. I'll be talking about that soon. So bulletproof coffee, I heard someone talk about it. Okay, so what happens is when you add butter, ghee, or MCT oil and you mix it with coffee, right? Butter, ghee, they get absorbed into your intestinal tract. It goes through your gut microbiome. But coffee works differently because the caffeine in coffee can travel straight into your brain. There is something called as a blood-brain barrier, and caffeine can transfer into that. When you bind fat with these coffee, what happens is it transfers, it goes through your gut, it surpasses the gut, moves from your gut-brain barrier, and can go into your brain. So what happens is when you have it in the morning, you feel more satiated and you will not even feel hungry until like midday. This is because your brain is only 2% of your body's weight, officially, but has 25% of your body's cholesterol. And why does it have it? To protect something called as myelin sheaths. These sheaths are something which insulate pathways of the nerves and the neurons. They insulate pathways and determine how fast nerves are communicating with each other. So having fat in your body is good, but having fat in your brain is even better. The next thing you can do with coffee is use a compound called as L-theanine. Now, L-theanine on itself is derived from something from black tea or green tea. It is rich in this thing. On its own, if you take L-theanine on its own, it can promote relaxation. It can get you into alpha brainwaves. But when you combine it with coffee, there is a synergistic chemistry that happens. The caffeine, which is the arousal part of the coffee, and the calming part of L-theanine, they increase your motor coordination, reaction time, and memory. So if you want to combine coffee with something, use some L-theanine with it. L-theanine is naturally occurs in black tea and green tea. It's what calms you down. You can, yes, you get it in a supplement form, or you can get it in a powdered form, and you can take like a small spoon, like 100 mg of L-theanine, and combine it with your coffee, mix it, and then drink it. To answer your question, how much coffee is required? So this depends on your genetic variability. So there are two genes which act here, PSSD2 and CYP-A12. Now it depends on which gene you have. So if you have CYP-A12, you're a fast metabolizer of coffee. Coffee is metabolized in the cytochrome P450 enzyme, in your body, and that clears 90% of your coffee. If you're a fast metabolizer, you can get away with more coffee because you can burn it off even faster. But the ones with PSDD2, they cannot get away with a lot of caffeine. So those are the guys who cannot have so much. As a general rule of thumb, I would say stop all your caffeine intake or stimulant intakes at 1 or 2 p.m. because there is something called as the half-life of coffee, and this may answer your question.